About 2 years ago, Kia really shocked the industry when they introduced the all-electric EV6, a vehicle that proved that the company was serious about offering a long-range electric vehicle that charges really quickly for the masses. Now, of course, fast forward 2 years later, and I'm standing by a high-performance version of the EV6. This is known as the EV6 GT, not to be confused with the GT line, which is essentially just a fast-looking version of the EV6. Unlike those other versions, this model here adds an extra 256 horsepower to all four wheels, giving you a total of 576 horsepower, along with 206 miles of range. And because it runs on the 800-volt architecture, the EV6 GT is capable of fast charging from 10 to 80% in about 18 minutes. Now, I've already had a chance to briefly drive this vehicle a couple months ago out in Las Vegas. However, this week, as you can see, Kia has loaned me the EV6 for a full week. So we're back home in our home state of PA, and we're going to put this vehicle through our usual battery up test, including some range testing out in colder conditions. So the big question I want to answer, if you guys have always had your eye on a quick charging and quick accelerating electric vehicle, does the EV6 GT have what it takes to compete with all those high-performance Teslas out on the road? Stay tuned to find out. So if you guys have watched my previous videos on the EV6 and its platform mate, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, you're gonna know that when I lift up the hood here, you are gonna get a frunk, although it's going to be a pretty small one. Now, when you lift up this cover here, you can see, I think this car only offers around 0.5 cubic feet of space, and there's also some kind of bug in there, which is gross. But anyways, compared to something like a Tesla or a Ford Mustang Mach-E, that is a minuscule amount of trunk or frunk space. However, at least it gives you a little bit of storage, unlike some competitors from Volkswagen or Toyota. But let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. What this car essentially is the front motor, or the rear motor has been moved to the front from a GT line. So the front motor develops more power versus the regular GT line, and then Kia put a stronger electric motor in the back, roughly twice the output, I believe, of the regular GT. Total power sits at 576 horsepower and 545 pound-feet of torque. That is a substantial 256 more ponies versus the GT line, which I said earlier is a fast-looking Kia EV6. I must correct myself, it's still a quick car. This, however, is just bonkers quick, because Kia claims it'll do 0 to 60 in under 3.5 seconds. And it has the same 77.6 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. I mentioned earlier, it runs on the 800-volt architecture, and you can roughly DC fast charge this car in about 18 minutes, up to 80%. If you plug it into your home on a level 2 on a 48 amp, it'll take roughly 8.5 to 9 hours. So relatively quick charging, even on a level 2. The onboard charger could be a little bit faster. I think it's a 11.5 kilowatt onboard charger. There are faster ones that you can get from some other manufacturers. It all goes out through a single speed reduction gear transmission. This car also has a top speed of around 161 miles an hour. So again, very, very serious performance that'll smoke a lot of sports cars, a lot of supercars, and it'll keep pace with all those high-performance Teslas, including the Model 3 Performance. But as this car sits, it weighs in at around 4,800 pounds. And this car, I believe, is not rated to tow, unlike other versions of the EV6. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the exterior styling. I personally like this car's styling a lot, especially from certain angles. However, the GT version is a very subtle tweaking of the styling. You really can't tell from this angle that you're driving the high performance model. You can see it looks like every other EV6 GT line. All of the models come standard with full LED headlights. This color is called Runway Red. It's a free color. Other colors are going to cost you between $500 to $700 depending on what you get. You can see here are the full LED headlights, which include an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals, LED low and high beams that are reflectors. No fog lights, however, the GT does get a slightly different bumper. You can see there's a slightly different vertical chrome slat there on the lower fascia. There's also a different insert in these portions of the fake grille. You can see these aren't even exposed. You don't really need that in an EV. I will say that I drove this vehicle at night in pitch dark conditions where there wasn't a lot of lighting. The low beams and high beams, to me, don't extend far enough in pure darkness. So especially the high beams, when you turn them on, I don't think they had quite enough reach. And I think that Kia should also add fog lights to the vehicle and adaptive cornering headlights. It could really use that especially if you guys constantly drive in low light situations where there's not a lot of street lights. Now, looking at the rest of the profile, you can see this is built on the company's dedicated EV platform known as eGMP, and the wheelbase is long, 114-inch long wheelbase, which is the same length as the Kia Telluride. Its overall length is around 184.5. It actually doesn't look that big when you're standing by or when you see it in photos and in video, but in person, you can tell this is not just a regular like hatch. It's supposed to be a crossover type of vehicle, an SUV is what Kia likes to call it. However, with like under 6 inches of ground clearance, it doesn't really have the capability of an SUV, but you can see here, this is going to be a clear indication of the GT. Its sportier mission are these wheels. These are a 21-inch wheel wrapped in a 255/40 R21-inch Goodyear Eagle F1 summer tire. This is a summer performance tire built especially for SUVs, apparently. You can see the brakes are also upgraded, massive 15-inch rotors with a 4-piston acid green caliper, painted caliper, which again looks pretty cool. I don't know if it's a great color combination with the red color. I really like this car in yacht blue with the neon acid green accents, but kind of let me know what you think in the comment section below. Color is always a subjective thing. Looking at the side mirror, you can see it's got a full 360 camera, which is nice. You have integrated turn signals, black painted side mirror, and then all of the GT models come standard with this sunroof, which is kind of like a half panoramic glass roof and like a regular sunroof. It doesn't go all the way into the back seat, which I kind of wish it did. It would let in a lot more light. You can see the rear or the side profile of this car is very distinctive. I really like that character line that kind of goes up and almost connects to the taillight, how it kind of comes down from the lower portion. And then the rear of the vehicle, you can see, has a really distinctive design. Love the full-length light blade LED taillights. However, in other markets, Kia puts a sequential turn signal, which I think would look a lot better. You can see here there's like this interesting textured material here that goes along the lower portion that kind of reflects light off of the taillight housing. And then back here you can see there's a very subtle GT badge there instead of a GT line badge, along with the new Kia logo. And then the rear bumper is slightly more aggressive. You have these vertical reflector elements here for the taillights, which give it off that this is the performance version. Now, looking at the cargo area, you can see the GT's cargo area is pretty usable. It's around 25 cubic feet of storage space, which expands to a little over 50 cubic feet if you guys fold down the seats. You can see down here you have a little bit more underfloor storage. And then you can see that's the vehicle to load feature that I've shown you on other versions, where you can essentially use this vehicle as like a generator and plug in certain other outlets. You can see back here is also the charge port door. Touch that, you can see it's a power opening and closing door. It has the J1772 plug along with standard DC fast charging. I mentioned earlier this car on a level 3 will go from 10 to 80% in about 18 minutes, which I tested it in cold weather. It actually will achieve very close to that. But overall, the cargo capacity, and I like the location of the charge port door, makes this a very practical vehicle to live with. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the interior of the Kia EV6 GT. Before I do that, I want to show you guys the key fob. You can see this is Kia's latest key that they introduced on the Stinger a few years ago. It has almost kind of like a detonator style look to it. Has usual lock, unlock, open up the trunk, panic button. And then you can see here this car also includes remote start from the fob, so I can basically just push and hold this button here, and the vehicle will turn on the heated seats, or I'm sorry, it'll turn on the heater. Surprisingly, the heated seats and heated steering wheel don't turn on when you use this mode, but I can also move the car forward and back by pushing and holding this button here, which you can see just as long as I'm standing by the vehicle, it allows me to move the car forward from the remote, which is pretty cool. As soon as I release the button, you can see it stops, and I can push this button here and it'll start moving back. So that's standard on every version of the GT. Really makes for a cool party trick to show off to your friends, but it's supposed to be allowing you to move the car forward and back from parking spots if there's a tight opening. Now, as I approach the vehicle, you can see the door handles, they electrically retract, or they pop out when you have the vehicle locked or unlocked. As I approach the vehicle or touch that area, you can see the door handles will pop out. And then I hope you guys like a black interior, because the GT only comes with this black interior with the suede, the leather accents, and then you can see the matching acid green stitching and contrasting piping and accents along the interior. It's a really nice looking color combination, especially with the red exterior. But I kind of wish the Kia offered a lighter color interior option. You can see the seats are also very distinctive. These seats are essentially lifted out of the Hyundai Elantra N or N products that I've seen. You can see it even has GT stamped on the back of the seats. These are far more aggressively bolstered and not as comfortable as the seats that you get on the GT line. They are heated, but as you can see here, $60,000 plus, and you get a manual seat, which is kind of annoying. It's a 6-way manual. I find that the seat here, it's too forwardly, or it's this part of the cushion is raised up too much while this is too low. You can raise the seat up in tandem, but I really wanted to adjust that, so I wish it was like an 8-way adjustable seat. I just wish this was power. I could forgive the fact that it's no longer a cooled seat. At least it's a heated seat. You get heated seats and heated steering wheel, but the fact that it's not power with the memory function really kind of annoys me considering the price tag of this vehicle. In terms of the door panel materials, you can see you have a soft touch injection molded plastic, a lot of piano black plastic trim with more suede over here, aluminum accents for the door handles, and then your window controls, you have automatic one touch up for just the fronts, not for the rears, which kind of is annoying. You do have power folding mirrors, and then my tester has the Meridian sound system, which is standard. I believe it has 14 speakers, and I have to say, as an audiophile myself, the speaker system, the sound system in this car is not great. It's really lacking in terms of bass and clarity. And when you start messing with it, it starts to mess with the clarity. So that's something that you should try out for yourself if you guys are an audiophile. The sound system in this car is not wonderful. Now getting inside, you can see the step-in feels more like I'm getting into a car versus an SUV. It feels low. And then when I get in and shut the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, which doesn't surprise me. This is built on the same wonderful eGMP architecture. Now starting the vehicle up, you can see start-stop button is right here on the center console. And then when you turn the vehicle on, you can see has that unique chime along with these two 12.3-inch displays, which kind of form together to make one curved display, although it's two separate displays. There's also a heads-up display here with augmented reality, which is pretty cool. And then you can see here your heated seats and heated steering wheel controls are right here. Other versions of the EV6 give you a cooled seat button, so it doesn't really give you that. The one thing that annoys me is every time I remote start this car, these don't come on automatically. I couldn't find it in the settings there. I suspect you can do it through the actual Kia app, but it's kind of annoying how it doesn't do that, especially in colder weather. The heated seats and steering wheel do work really well, at least, thank God. But you can see here, this steering wheel is slightly unique to the GT. You have the acid green stitching. You have a GT button here that basically engages the full GT drive mode. There's also a custom drive mode there where you can kind of change your individual settings. And then you can see there's an eco, normal, and a sport mode, which I'll try out the different drive modes later on in the video. You also have paddles on the wheel that control the regen braking. Lots of controls here for the DriveWise package, their driver assistance tech, which is standard on this car, along with your audio controls. The horn, it sounds good. It doesn't sound quite as like get out of my way as I'd like it to be, but at least it doesn't sound super puny. The steering wheel itself offers a manual tilt and telescoping arrangement, which offers a good amount of adjustability and range. The dashboard, you can see, has this really interesting texture where it's not padded, but it almost tries to look like it's padded. It's definitely, interior quality is not the strong suit of this platform, but at least it does have really cool, intricate ambient lighting where you can kind of change the color of that. It's in the footwells, it's in the cup holders, it's on the dash, which all makes it look very nice at night. There's some aluminum trim over here, and then you can see this floating center console allows for huge amounts of storage down here. You can see there's your USB-A charge port along with a USB-C. My phone is connected right now because it doesn't have wireless CarPlay. As you can see, this still has their current system here that allows you to have CarPlay and Android Auto, but it's not wireless, and it also doesn't have over-the-air updates, which is kind of frustrating. Going back to the Kia display, this is, you can see, really easy to use. It's quick, it's snappy. It works pretty well. You can see you can also do a split screen over here, which is nice. There's also an EV mode that shows you how much range you have and where your charging stations are going to be. If you use the Kia GPS when you have it going to a charging station, it actually will precondition the battery. That's something that it didn't used to do, but then you have to use the Kia Nav, which isn't wonderful. Down here on the center stack, you can see more piano black plastic. This is the controller for the 1-speed reduction gear transmission. Hyundai and Kia do a really great job with their full 360 cameras, which you can see just like a European car or German car. I can kind of swipe around the vehicle and do a perimeter scan. Kind of wish that was the correct car. That's a GT line in white. I kind of wish it was the correct car in the same color, but that's kind of nitpicking. It's still a really great resolution quality camera. And then you can see over here, push that button, it gives you, again, the camera system again, if you don't want to have to put it in reverse. And then over here you can see wireless phone charging pad, which works pretty well. And then you can see cup holders and whatnot. This padded center console could be a little softer. If you open this up, you can see it's a pretty deep storage area, which is nice. This sadly doesn't move forward and back like it does in the Ioniq 5. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. The seats, like I mentioned earlier, look great. However, they are a little uncomfortable for me. I think once you're sitting in them, for short drives, they feel okay. But on longer drives, I noticed that they were kind of hurting my back a little bit. And again, it's just the angle is all wrong for me. Over above me, you can see there's this sunroof, which actually does open. The EV6 is one of the few vehicles that offers a sunroof that opens. That's something the Ioniq 5 does not have, but the Ioniq 5 has a roof that goes all the way to the back of the vehicle. This does not, so that's something to keep in mind. But overall, the front seat area is certainly a nice place to spend time. Just be sure you're okay with the comfort of these seats. And for those of you who want a better sound system, you might want to consider the Genesis GV60 version of this car, which to me has the more luxury-oriented interior. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat. Because of that long wheelbase with the EV6, you do have a relatively usable back seat. Kia says there's around 39 inches of legroom back here, which is pretty impressive. The seats themselves also offer a recline function, and they also fold flat. In terms of the headroom, it is going to be compromised slightly because this isn't as high as some other competing vehicles. So when I get in, I kind of have to duck my head just slightly. But as I get in and shut the door, you can see there's a ton of legroom back here. The floor is completely flat, which is nice. You have 2 USB-C charging ports. You do have rear seat air vents here on the pillars, on the B pillars. And then back here, you can see materials are hard touch plastic, but at least Kia does throw in heated seats. You can see there's some of the ambient lighting that's in the door panels. You can also see it over there. And then if you fold this down, you can see there's an armrest that gives you 2 cup holders, and you can also fold it back to give you a little bit more storage. No storage pockets in the actual seat back because of these high performance seats. But overall, once you're back here, you can certainly fit adults back here, although the headroom space is a little bit tighter, especially if you guys are over 6 feet. So here we are back in the quickest production Kia ever built, also the most powerful production Kia ever built. And it's a car that was very unexpected from this Korean automaker, but Kia and Hyundai have been doing wonderful things. Now, the last time I drove the EV6, I was out in Las Vegas where it was pretty warm. However, we're back home and it's about 46 degrees outside. Granted, it was literally half that temperature about a couple days ago where I had a chance to really test out the range, which I'll talk about later on. But we're starting out this drive with a 98% state of charge. It showed 193 miles on a full charge in eco mode. If you go to GT mode, it drops the range by about 20. Right now it's showing around 171 miles of range. But let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise in this vehicle. Remember, this car comes standard with all-wheel drive. It doesn't have launch control. We're just gonna floor it. Ooh. Oh my gosh, this thing is literally lifting up the front end. Tunnel vision, it literally gives you tunnel vision when you do that. But in GT mode, that's what I had it in. That's gonna give you the maximum of 576 horsepower. I just got 3.45 seconds on my first run. Now, it is cold outside, and I've got these summer performance tires. And I didn't hear the tires squealing for grip, but you can tell the car is trying to find traction. The all-wheel drive system is sending power to the wheel with the best grip, and it takes off really well, but I'm just surprised that for such a fast car, Kia does not equip this thing with launch control. But you know what, I'm gonna try brake torquing it on this stretch right here, which is also slightly more uphill, and we can see if it makes a difference. Kia claims under 3.5 seconds for this car. Ooh! Oh, it definitely feels a little quicker there. Wow, 3.53 there. This is with it more going slightly uphill. So I'll try launching it or brake torquing it again. It definitely made a difference versus if I just floored the car and didn't brake torque it. But oh God, this thing is unbelievably fast, and it literally, you can feel the chassis like fighting around with the weight. The front lifts up. I mean, this car has a stiffer suspension tune, and it has adaptive dampers. So in this mode, it's going to give us the stiffest suspension setting possible. And you definitely notice that this car has a firm ride quality compared to other variants of the EV6. It also is accredited by the 21-inch wheels. It's also going to firm up the ride. The steering in this car is just unbelievably quick for a vehicle that's supposed to be an SUV, a crossover per se. But it essentially feels like I'm driving a hot hatch, more so than even vehicles like the Mustang Mach-E GT Performance, which I owned for a year, or a Tesla Model Y Performance. Those cars feel a little bit more like SUVs. Kia, on the other hand, built basically a hot hatch with almost 580 horsepower. It's just insane. to think of. Now, in terms of the seats, as I go through some corners here, they do hold you in place very nicely. These are practically lifted out of a Hyundai Performance product, an N product. However, in terms of long distance comfort, I don't particularly find these seats to be very comfortable when you're just cruising along. The seat bottom cushion is too raised up for me on the front thigh extender portion. I wish I could lower it manually on its own. It allows me to lower it manually, but I have to also like use this manual lever, which in a car that costs this much, I expected power seats. So that's a little bit annoying. In terms of visibility, it's really easy to see out of this car very well. The view out of the back is a little bit obscured because of the small window, and I kind of wish Kia offered a rear window, a rear view mirror camera. That would definitely improve that. But let's go ahead and try it right here. See what we can get 0 to 60 wise. We'll brake torque it. It's in GT mode. Ooh! Oh God, this thing. All right, 3.38 seconds there. Okay, that is fast. That practically matches the acceleration that I got in a BMW i4 M50, which is priced pretty similarly to this car, assuming you can keep the options in check. But it's just amazing to me how fast this thing is. And Kia even allows you to let the tail step out in this mode because it shuts off the stability control, and it really just lets you have a little fun. There's also a drift mode that you can engage, which I'm not going to do on public roads, but I've seen Kia do it when I was on the media drive, so that's great. The regen braking in this car offers true one-pedal drive when you have it in I-pedal mode, which is nice. It's great for when you want to do those quick bursts of acceleration, but again, you want to be able to just lift off the throttle, and this car puts the energy back into the battery pack, and it helps you slow down for when you're going very fast. But it amazes me how this car does hide its 4,700 pound curb weight quite well, actually. And the suspension feels like it's kind of tuned right in the middle of a little being too firm and too soft. It's kind of a nice tune for me. In this mode, you definitely notice it rides a little stiffer. If I put the car into eco mode, this limits the power to 288 horsepower, and it feels noticeably slower. Going into normal or sport gives you 488 horsepower or 480 horsepower, so it's about 100 horsepower less. But let's go ahead and actually try a 0 to 60 time here in normal mode, because I suspect that's what most people are going to do. They're going to drive this car in normal and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise just in normal mode. We'll brake torque, or we'll just floor it. Definitely feels slower a little bit, but still quick. 3.83 seconds there, which is insanely fast. Let's try it in eco mode. I want to see the difference here in eco mode. Oh, that feels so slow compared to the other modes. 6.45 seconds, which is, to be honest, probably the normal amount of acceleration an average person will be able to tolerate. So let's recap. 6.4 seconds in eco mode, 3.8 in normal mode, and up to 3.3 in GT mode, which is just shocking. It's shocking how much difference it is. Literally, the car is giving you only half the power in those modes. But let's go ahead and quickly talk about the range of this car, because in my week's worth of testing, in the very cold, that's where I started this, in 20-degree temperatures, this car realistically was getting around 160 miles on a full charge. That is, of course, with it being so cold outside, not great range. So this car is rated at 206. Now that the temperature is around 46 degrees, it's showing around 175, 180 miles on a full charge, which is what I was getting in the real world. So the range dropped by 20 more miles in the cold, in the 20-degree cold. I suspect if you start going really cold, below zero, this car will probably be doing 150 or less miles on a full charge. That is paltry. That is unacceptable. And it's a shame because this car is so good to drive. It's so unbelievably quick. And it does DC fast charge very quickly. You can do the 10 to 80% charge in about 18 minutes, and I've tested it in the colder weather. It'll do it in around 20 minutes or so. It's capable of doing it, which is good because the range isn't great, so you're going to be DC fast charging it a lot. But when you have competitors like the Tesla Model Y Performance doing 303 miles, the BMW i4 also doing around 270 miles, granted you don't get the 20-inch wheels on that car, and the Mustang Mach-E is rated at 270, 260 miles, the Kia's range definitely looks like a big downfall, a big con for the car, which again, if you're okay with that, you're not planning to take too many long road trips, although this car does DC fast charge quickly, which helps. But you are giving up, you know, like 70 plus miles of range compared to a GT line, or 40 plus miles of range compared to an all-wheel drive GT line. And remember, the rear drive long range EV6 can do around 310 miles. So it's a significant drop, like a 50% drop in range, which is kind of normal when you're talking about a performance car. But again, as long as you don't plan on taking long road trips, it should be acceptable for you. But other than that, this is one hell of a deal. It's one hell of a quick car. And I think it'll shock most people if they've never driven an electric Kia. So after spending a full week with the flagship performance version of the eGMP family that's known as the EV6 GT, I have to say I am very impressed with the performance of this car. 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds in GT mode. When you brake torque, it is absolutely astonishing. You'll be able to do 3.4, 3.5 all day long simply by stomping on the throttle from a stop. And I love the fact that Kia makes this car very stealthy. For those of you who likes to fly under the radar, you won't be able to tell this is the high performance version unless you know for the clues to take a look at that will give off as this model as the high performance model. In terms of the interior, I like the 12.3-inch dual displays. I like Kia's latest infotainment system, although I really am sad that they still don't do wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto or over-the-air updates. I suspect Kia is working on an all-new software, which they may be showing for the upcoming Kia EV9. That's their electric crossover. That's a 3-row that's coming out supposedly later this year. They've already showed a concept version of that. That's going to be something that's more Kia Telluride size. In terms of performance, this car, I think, nails it. It has amazing handling for a vehicle that weighs 4,800 pounds. It offers amazing straight line performance. It offers the ability to basically do drifts and let the tail step out, which is unheard of in a high-performance electric vehicle, let alone a Kia. But really where this car suffers is the range, because in my real-world testing out in the cold, 170 miles, 160 miles in sub-30-degree temperatures is just unacceptable. At least the car DC fast charges quickly, but even in these conditions, it's around 45 degrees right now. It's showing only 190-ish miles of range on a full charge. Again, your mileage will always vary, but the fact that Kia does lower the range significantly because of the inefficiency of the motors, and of course these big wheels and tires, that's going to lower the efficiency. So just keep that in mind if you guys are considering the GT version, because the GT line offers around 270 miles of range. And it has, again, it's still a relatively quick car at 4.6 seconds. But again, this model here is going to come with those compromises. Now, if you are looking to buy a GT version, Kia actually reasonably prices this car for the extra performance that you get. This car starts at around $61,400. It's only about $4,000 more versus a GT line with all-wheel drive. So that's kind of a steal, although when I first tested this vehicle, the price was significantly undercutting major competitors. However, Tesla and even Ford have significantly dropped their prices, and unlike the American-made competitors, this car does not qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit because it is still built in Korea. I suspect Kia will eventually move production to the US, but for now, this car here at a total price of around $63,000 is still a relatively good deal. However, in light of Tesla's price reductions, you can get a Model Y performance for around $59,000, $60,000. That's before the $7,500 federal tax credit. Ford's Mustang Mach-E GT starts at around $63,900, which also qualifies for the tax credit. However, I'd argue that the Kia is a really interesting looking car. It's quicker than both of those vehicles, 0 to 60. It charges faster than most of those vehicles. However, you are going to give up that range. So there's always that kind of give and take. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2023 Kia EV6 and the full-on GT performance version. If you guys are also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.